One thing in the fall you want to notice is fish go shallow. You know, we're on a full moon situation right here in the fall, and one thing on a full moon in the fall, or a full moon really anytime, but especially in the fall, those fish will go extremely shallow to feed. And like I said, they're up there, they're gorging themselves, they're trying to get food for the winter, you know, so don't eliminate going extremely shallow in the fall to catch more fish.
You know, something I've noticed in the fall, there is a trigger in October smallmouth that when the water temps get back around 60 degrees, big males will come on flats and do a false spawn. They're tricked, like the ritual that they do in May and June, they do the same thing and come to the same areas in October on a full moon. And I've caught them off of beds in September and October. There's no females around, there's just a big male making a bed. They're a little, and what's interesting, they're a little looser to the bed than they are in May and June, but they're absolutely, for just lack of a better term, with my buddies and I call it false spawning, because they're actually not spawning, they're just doing the ritual of making a bed and waiting for a lady, but there ain't no ladies coming.
Well, the best tip I can give you guys for fall is thinking up in the water column and fishing do-nothing banks, flat pockets. Go to the very back end of pockets, creeks, and get back there. Those shad are gonna migrate back and stay in balls and just get on clay and just dirt, sand banks, things like that. Think up in the water column, so skinny baits, really shallow running 1.5 shallow runner, and keep your baits up, and don't be scared to get in that deep of water. This time of year, fall, go to the very back end where your trolling motor's kicking up mud. Think shallow. You can't get shallow enough in the fall.
My favorite time of the year without a doubt is the fall, and if I could give you one piece of advice, maybe two, fish in the fall really tend to group up and school up. So depending on what lake you're on, what part of the country, keep a few things in mind. Bass are going to be around forage, whatever your forage base is. If you're in the south, it's going to be shad. If you're in the north, it might be some other type of bait fish. But fish school up and they get close to bait. And that could be in the back of a creek, it could be out on the main lake point. But the thing about it is, if you look for your bait fish, look for your forage, and look for your fish schooled up, because that makes fall my favorite time of the year to fish, because it's a numbers game.
Bassmaster Elite Series Pro Mark Menendez here with you. And fall, what a great time to fish. Transition. Got fish in the back of the bays, got fish in the middle of the bay, got fish out in the lake. How do you target those? In the fall, when these big fronts like we have today are coming through, wind is always prevalent. When fishing wind, always have the wind at your back, pushing you down the bank to cover maximum areas that you possibly can, but there will be key places where fish will position and get their face in the wind so that that current brings the bait to them. Corners of point where wind blows over the top of the point. Channel swing is another one of those type places. When you get there, a spinnerbait is one of my absolute favorite ways to fish in the fall. Spinnerbait going Mach 1 this way under the surface and a smallmouth going Mach 2 that way, you know what happens. The other thing that you have to do with that spinnerbait this time of the year is always add that trailer hook. I know it can be cumbersome around cover, but that trailer hook gets that fish that's just nipping at the bait. It comes up behind it, blows at it, doesn't get it. The spinnerbait lands most of my fish this time of the year with that trailer hook. Fish insurance with that trailer hook. Spinnerbaits in the fall. Keep the wind at your back, throwing at places where the wind's hitting the bank the hardest. With a spinnerbait, it's game on for big fish in the fall.